Hello, my name is John Moy, and this Monday, happy early for 4th of July, by the way, but this Monday, I finished Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, the third Stormlight Archive book, and I really loved this book, so I wanted to do a review as soon as possible. I was busy the last couple days. So Oathbringer, I'm going to start with a short spoiler-free section before going into a little bit more in depth in a spoiler section. I really enjoyed this book. For me, it's probably my second favorite Stormlight Archive book. I liked Words of Radiance better. I think the flashbacks were stronger in Words of Radiance, and I think that there were more high points in the middle rather than just a superb end, which I think Oathbringer did have a really great ending. But I did like this more than Way of Kings. I think that this definitely has better flashbacks than Way of Kings. And Way of Kings really, it's a very slow book with a really great finale, versus this definitely had more in the middle, not as much as Words of Radiance, but definitely more than Way of Kings. Cosmere wise, it's really great. I think Sanderson knocked it out of the park with this. This is probably right after after the Final Empire for when it comes to my favorite Cosmere books. So I really did enjoy Oathbringer, and I think it's interesting. This is a lot more bleak of a book, in my opinion, than Words of Radiance. Words of Radiance finished on kind of the note of we won, right? There may be wars coming, but we won for now. This one was more of a we didn't lose that badly. So like we're still alive, but it's definitely a bleaker end, and I'm interested to see how Words of Radiance, Rhythm of War will continue on with that. Another thing is there's a lot of world building here, which I'll go into in the spoiler section. There's a lot of interesting world building here that I do think will come more into play with Rhythm of War, which is interesting. When it comes to kind of the in-universe book, Oathbringer is really cool. It's the first one to have to be written by one of our characters. Way of Kings was written by someone a long time ago. Words of Radiance it's kind of almost a textbook that was used in World to explain what was happening with Kaladin and Shallan in that book, and then not going to say who it is. I'll say that in the spoiler section. But it was interesting, Oathbringer being actually much more connected to these characters. The characters in this book. But overall, I think it was awesome to see kind of the direction that the Radiants are taking, especially how the different orders are going about developing their Radiants, as well as a lot of really there's a lot of great character moments from more characters than just like for Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. You get great character moments for Shallan, Dalinar, and Kaladin. This has more character development and growth for just a ton for more characters than just those kind of main three. I mean, I'm pretty sure this has way more perspectives, not even just interlude perspectives, actual perspectives in the text than other books. Like, I mean, if you go to like the last part, let me see if I can find it. No, it's part 4. Part 5, particularly, the different perspectives are all of the Knights Radiant, which is at this point there are like 7 of them, plus Ash, plus Navani, plus Adolin, plus Teravagain, plus Yanagawan, plus Pelona, plus Vyre, plus Wit. So it's definitely more character development for a wider array of characters. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That was pretty much 15 characters that all got their own perspective in this one chapter. In this one part, which was really great to see kind of more character building from Sanderson. But that was the non-spoiler section. I'm going to pause right here, and we're going to go into my spoiler-filled thoughts about Oathbringer. All right, so here's the spoiler section for Oathbringer. And this is gonna be kind of all over the place. But to start, kind of the lore building for, there's a lot of lore building for Oathbringer, particularly Shadesmar. This is the first time we've gotten a truly in-depth look at Shadesmar. Well, we might have gotten it in Edge Dancer. I haven't read Edge Dancer, one of the novellas, but like, if you have not read the novellas, this is the first time we get a truly in-depth view of Shadesmar, because we saw Shallan kind of peek into Shadesmar in both Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, but the whole travel section in Shadesmar kind of really helped build kind of the lore and the world building of this completely alternate plane, which was, it's interesting to see, because Sanderson is known for his world building, and Shadesmar has so many kind of unique quirks about it that makes it different from from the physical plane, and it just makes it enjoyable to kind of get to discover and unlock these different parts of Sanderson's world, which I really did enjoy with Shadesmar. One interesting, it was interesting to see kind of the Deadeyes with Adeline Spren and the kind of almost internal politics of Shadesmar. We saw that with Roshar, and now Shadesmar here, where kind of the comments about the Honor Spren and the Cryptics, and how almost the internal politics of this world work. In addition to that, I think the Unmade were a super interesting addition to in addition to the novel. Actually, I like the title Oathbringer, connecting it back to Dalinar's kind of story. But I almost think Mythica would have worked just as well. Mythica was the in-universe novel which talked about the Unmade, and because of how much Odium and the Unmade are focused on in this book, I mean, they play major roles, whether in the Dark Mother in Urathu, which I'm not pronouncing that right, or in Kholinar, all the way up to the Thrill, which we see Dalinar experience, and into the final battle of the novel. The Unmade play such a pivotal role in kind of in the previous books. Odium isn't really talked about. There's this, you have kind of this building looming threat, but there's no specifics. But as Odium and the Unmade are being made into greater and greater threats as we come through this series, because we scared one away, and then they dealt with one of them in this novel. So there's still 8 out there, 7 that are at large. I think that calling the book Mythica almost would have worked better. I get that that's more of a generic title, while Oathbringer is distinctively Stormlight versus Mythica, which there are tons of books that have similar titles with Mythica, whatever. But I would have preferred that for the in-universe book for Oathbringer. But the Unmade were a super interesting addition, especially as we learn through the Mythica. The ones that are the difference between the cognitive Unmade, the ones that have unique personalities, versus kind of ones like the ones like the Thrill, who are just forces rather than actual personalities. It was an interesting piece of world building that, I mean, with 7 more out there at large, I think that will be something very important coming. I just assume that will be something very important coming into Rhythm of War. Character-wise, there was a lot of character growth through this novel. I guess starting with our big 3, the Dalinar flashbacks were super awesome. Were great. I did like Shallan's better, but Dalinar's flashbacks, as we see kind of the rise of the Blackthorn as he comes into his military might, and then almost like a slow descent he has after Evie's death. It's really tragic. It's I mean, all of them have been tragic up to this point. I've really gotten my use out of the emotional support bookmark I found in Trust of the Emerald Sea. It's tragic, but it's seeing the path that it took for Dalinar to reach where he is today. And it was also interesting. We've heard kind of the stories of the Blackthorn. He has this nickname. And then the reason that these other monarchs are scared of him. getting to see why they're scared of him, it makes their actions seem more reasonable rather than like all we've seen of him. Oh, he's a good general, versus seeing what he did in his past that earned him the name Blackthorn. It makes it way more reasonable why these monarchs are terrified that he is going to try to conquer them. So the Dalinar flashbacks are really great. Especially, it gives us more insight into cultivation, with her prepping Dalinar to eventually face Odium. So Dalinar, we got a lot more, and then we have kind of the modern day Dalinar dealing with learning his past and learning what he did and what he has come from, all obviously culminating in the amazing moment in the final battle, You Can't Have My Pain, where he bridges the cognitive, spirit, and physical realms, which just amazing. It's just I love each book. Kind of brings one of the main three characters into further focus, and this is definitely it for Dalinar. Despite being a main character, almost felt a little bit of a side character in the first two, as we definitely focus on Shallan and Kaladin, but he really came into it. I think we really got a lot of really great Dalinar moments in Oathbringer. Moving on to Shallan, who has the worst identity crisis ever. I get this. I wasn't the biggest fan of Shallan in Way of Kings. I definitely liked her a lot more in Words of Radiance. Her flashbacks definitely provided that insight. And here, I get why she's a divisive character. Funny story. So I was I was talking to my dermatologist, who also likes to read fantasy novels. He said he quit Words of Radiance because of Shallan. And I get why people can find her a divisive character, but I think that her arc coming through this book was awesome to kind of see her, because let's be real, she has some of the worst coping mechanisms known to mankind. Not the worst, because there's Kaladin, but it's pretty bad. And so, seeing her through this book, like, she doesn't fix it. She doesn't solve her coping mechanisms, but her fighting with Radiant and Veil throughout this entire book to who she wants to be, and when Janassa comes back from the dead, her kind of not knowing how to deal with these overwhelming circumstances, the overwhelming emotions, seeing her work through, like, it's painful. It's really painful at times throughout this novel, especially when she gets all WIs towards Kaladin, towards Kaladin. But I think that she's in a much better. She's not great at the end. She's not perfect at the end of this book, but I do think that she's gotten better, and I hope to see more character development for her in Rhythm of War. Then our third main character, Kaladin. Ouch. Like, Way of Kings was all about breaking Kaladin so that he could become kind of the proto-Knight Radiant we see at the end of that book. Words of Radiance was actually, it was rough on Kaladin. Like, it's always rough on Kaladin, but I think that it was better. It's probably at this point, the highest point he's been in the series. Right, on his path to the Knight's Radiance, he's a bodyguard to Dalinar and Elhokar, and I think that's the highlight of him kind of being in control. And then even in the beginning of this book, he starts pretty good in control as the Bridge 4 starts to become his Windrunner squires, and then we get to Kholinar, and it is hit after hit after hit after hit on Kaladin. And we get to where they are in Shadesmar at the end of the book, and they're like, "Oh, Kaladin, you need to say the words in order to get us out of Shadesmar," and he just can't. And there's a meme I saw. It was, I'll put it on screen now. It just sums up Kaladin through these books, where Brandon Sanderson has just thrown the most awful stuff at him, and just him slowly breaking throughout Shadesmar and into the end of the book. It's rough for Kaladin, and he does not have the most healthy coping mechanisms. He has some of the worst, but it's a rough book if you're a Kaladin fan. That middle section is awful. It's really bad. I'm not gonna lie if you like Kaladin. Kind of going some of our side characters. I like where Adeline is going as the Shard Bearer. One problem I had with Miss Morn, especially starting Well of Ascension and then the last hero, is I don't like. So this is spoiler for Mistborn right here. I'm going to put it in kind of the description and in the spoiler section here. Is I think that Elend getting Mistborn powers was a huge mistake in that book. That's if I could retcon anything from the Cosmere, it would be that. I think it was a huge mistake, and I'm glad. I think that as we're getting pretty much all of these Knight Radiants, pretty much the whole Colin family becoming Knights Radiant in this novel, not having Adeline become a Knight Radiant is one of the best choices Sanderson ever made. I think that having Adeline be just a really great duelist, a Shard Bearer, surrounded by Radiants, but not being a Radiant himself is a really great choice. And Adeline's character not really character arc through this novel, but I think he provides much needed relief and contrast to the dourness of Kaladin, the identity crisis of Shallan through this book. And I think that I really hope that Sanderson does not make him Radiant. And I think it would be a detriment to his character if Sanderson did. But I just enjoyed Adeline, especially in Shadesmar, being completely out of his depth. For the first time ever, Adeline he can't do anything. He can't be helpful, which was really fun to see. Also, probably my favorite interaction in this book is when Kaladin is with the wall guard, and they pass by Adeline, and the wall guard cracks on him, and then Kaladin's thinking like, man, how can you hate on Adeline? If you talk with him for 5 minutes, you'll figure out what a great guy he is. After spending the entirety of Words of Radiance cracking on and disliking Adeline. This it's just hilarious. And the bromance between Kaladin and Adeline is great throughout this novel, continuing throughout this novel. Other major characters, Sazed, is seeing kind of the arc with the Skybreakers and his eventual decision to follow Dalinar. And Sazed, it's really interesting to see Sazed have to come to terms with what he did, with the actions he took, realizing that there was a line, it was in there, it was just a stone, where he did these things to preserve his honor, whatever, but it wasn't a magic stone. It was just a stone, and it's him coming to terms with what he did, and at this point choosing to make the choice to be better, and to try to do something better than he knows he can't be forgiven for his previous actions, but to do enough good that he can at least make up for some of it. Which is really awesome. And then, of course, the interaction with Nightblood, who's hilarious, and then great kind of tie-ins with, especially Warbreaker, which is one of my favorite Cosmere novels. It was a lot of fun with Nightblood in there. His other Knights Radiant, Rohirrim, is, that's not how you pronounce it. Adeline's younger brother is... It's interesting. Once again, great. I would choose Truthwalkers as my Order of Radiant, and it's interesting to see his development, because his development throughout this novel, because he's I think he's supposed to be. I think book 7 is supposed to be his backstory, but reading through this novel, he's a minor character, but seeing kind of what he's struggling with, especially with the heartbreaking scene at the end, where Josiah, I cannot never pronounce her name, Janassa is about to kill him, and he's watching Dalinar be corrupted by odium, and just kind of like the little moments throughout the book as he's trying to come into his own. He spent his entire life not being able to do much, being looked down upon by his father because he can't fight, to start to try to find where he's supposed to fit in and what his purpose is supposed to be, was really awesome. Other major characters, Another character who played a minor role, but still a role in this. It was interesting to see soul casting develop it through Chanasa, because Shallan has focused way more on light weaving than soul casting. So it was interesting to see with her practice what she was able to do, especially in that final battle there. I think that all of the politics stuff was really interesting, with the coalition and Dalinar trying to slowly bring these leaders to his side, while at the same time Tara Vigerin is working against him, working with Odium in order to undermine Dalinar, in order to protect Karboth. Super interesting how the leaders work together and the coalition in that respect. Lord Ahriman is a horrible person, and I'm glad he's dead. Throughout this entire book, he plays a much more minor role here, but with his awful transformation in the end, and eventually him being killed by Rock. Then Bridge 4, I love Bridge 4, we got a lot of great Bridge 4 moments with Teft and with Rock, and with all of these, as the kind of stories of each of them kind of is expanded a little bit more, and Bridge 4 is one of my favorite aspects of the Stormlight Archive. I love the characters, and so that was super exciting to see more Bridge 4 and kind of the expansion of the characters of Bridge 4, which was super awesome to see. So I guess those are the major characters I wanted to talk about, but I want to talk about the ending, because Sanderson has a way of breaking the characters you love so much, and then at the very brink, bringing them back to this glorious, triumphant finale. And that was the finale of Oathbringer. I think way more than in Words of Radiance or Way of Kings. Everyone is broken. Kaladin, every single main character we have is broken. They are losing. Everything's about to end. And you have that one moment with Dalinar where he says, "You cannot have my pain," to Odium, and it's just it's my favorite finale, even more than Kaladin facing down Moash in Words of Radiance, even more than Kaladin gaining his surges and fighting against the Parandashi at the end of Way of Kings. This finale was so amazing as we watch each of the Radiants in their own way use their powers and surges in order to defeat Odium's army. It was really awesome, and the finale was amazing. There's a lot more I could say about this. Odium, about how great of a villain Odium is, and how terrifying of a threat the Voidbringers are. But I really love this book. I loved Oathbringer, and I think that this is definitely second best in Stormlight Archive, and I cannot wait for Rhythm of War. I already have lined up, once I finish The Light Fantastic, I have Dawnshard to read, so I will definitely be reading Dawnshard. I will always take Morlopen, so I'm super excited for that. But thank you so much for watching my review of Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. And I hope to see you next, probably for my week in summer reading, where I'll talk about, as of now, Oathbringer and probably Light Fantastic. I'll finish that. I'm almost done with that. So those will definitely be on there for my week 3 end of summer reading. Thank you so much. Goodbye.